mother with this thing. Came in for a dash and a little wheel well trimming. Next thing you know, we're mounting the motor, remounting the motor, cutting the suspension off, moving it back in. The suspension was not even made for this car. These towers used to be basically 1 3/8 further out. Wheels wouldn't even go up in the fender. They were hitting the fender. So we moved it in. They go up, look real good. Turn throughout all the travel, so you'll never rub a fender. It tucks the top inch of the tire at ride height if you want to. This shock tower is not so happy. Not a lot left there, so we got to figure something out there to reinforce that, but everything's back where it needs to be. Now that we got that set, it's just been chasing one thing. Oh no, that's not going to work, and it's just snowballed into a giant can of worms. But now we're kind of back into going into making progress instead of cutting shit off and moving it. So suspension set. Next is motor, engine. Gonna mount this sucker so we can stab it. It's just on blocks right now off the ground. Then we can start sheeting stuff in. Get that firewall back in order. Mount steering column. Finish the dash. Get the sucker back on the all fours. It made sense to scoot this motor back, and then talking to the client, he said that, as far back as we can get it within reason would be good. And what ended up happening was these manifolds here, he wanted to keep. He doesn't want to run headers. He doesn't want to hassle with headers. He just wants to run the stock manifold. So those manifolds hit the cross member and suspension if it's any further forward, so you can see how right there is a nice sweet spot. But then we got the steering coming through. Another deal that we were going to do already, new column. Everything just got cut up. Whole bottom's cut up just to fit the pan. Steering rack no longer works. It's just a big old freaking can of worms. So we have the motor and transmission mounted now. You can see in here everything just barely fits. And then of course the tires hit the wheel well. So whacking that out, there's nothing up here that we didn't have to really get into. Vented air unit, I cut a little hole in there so I could push that up a little bit higher inside so you don't see the bottom of it under the dash. So that's a short version of it. So now we have the column mounted. Has the fly-by-wire pedal. Had to go. Brake lines in the way. Boom, gone. So now we're going to start sheeting this in. Putting it back together. Got everything happy where it's at, mounted. Now we can start making it so. We had to cut the cross member and everything that's a whole nother story I'll get into later, but this is what we ended up having to do on the other side. Freaked me the fuck out because you can see all this cutting and hacking had to be done, and once you're cutting and hacking this much out of a frame, there's not really any going back without just completely wasting hours and hours of time. So this is what it came out to be. It's all notched out for the coil over there. So what I'm going to do now is make some overlay plates so it doesn't look like an add-on so much. It'll look real good when it's done. Come up here, overlay plate there. So everything landed right where it needs to be now. Super bitchin'. And this thing's going to handle like a race car now, the way it should. Everything in the right spot. So now we can go through and show you step by step of how we got to this point. Got the 2x2 tacked on the bottom. It's tricky cutting this top section out because you can't really get to the back side with that tower in place, so you got to cut it from the front. So I just kind of cut the first half off, and then I'll cut the rest from the inside here. Careful not to go too deep here and get into that. Gonna weld it anyways, so it's not a big deal if you do. And then I have the engine mount in there that's might have to do something with that. Just wanted to double check a few things. Like a little bit more right there. Got a notch out for the shock right now. So.
Frozen in an ancient cave, I'm an ice cube corpse. Stuck inside a whitewashed wave, they're out of sorts.
We got the motor out. We can get back in here and finish up the back sides of all these towers, crossbar, tunnel. Everything's a lot more accessible now. Actually got to redo the shock mounts too. So redid the upper shock mounts, so now the shock bottom's out where it needs to. And full bump. The tire clears all the way, both ways.
Got some hashish in a buckskin pouch. Buckskin pouch. Got some piles of bones laying around my house. Around my house. Around my house.
Now I got the column mounted, at least I think, where it needs to go. Starting to weld up the firewall here. And now we got to mount this gas pedal back in here because all this stuff had to come out and get relocated. Everything crashed into each other, so now we're putting it back. And I want to scoot this pedal over as much as I can to the right. And jam it jams like somewhere like this. I think somewhere like right there. Then we're going to mount that brake pedal assembly right next to it. There's a fly-by-wire. The throw on this thing is so short. It's crazy. Like, that's it.
Rolling on across these plains. Got a well-trained steed. We've been drinking from the skulls of our enemies. When we get home, I'm gonna lay my woman down. My woman down. 'Cause there's fire, terror, and culture coming round. Coming round. Coming round. Coming round.
Cars going together. Stuff everywhere. Trying to put everything together. Looking so nice.